Hi, and welcome to the introduction to the art of teaching the whole child in a pandemic, cultivating trauma-sensitive practices for resilience. This is a 2020 Google Classroom series that EastCon is happy to provide to you if you would like to participate. So a little bit about the coach who will be involved. That's me. I entered the education world as a tutor and behavior support para, and now I'm a school psychologist, BCBA, and licensed psychologist working as an educational and behavioral consultant with EastCon, where I focus on classroom engagement, K-12 intensive social emotional programming for students with traumatic histories, mental health concerns, ADHD, etc., at our clinical day treatment programs, as well as in-district programs, and I support leaders and teachers in school climate and behavioral tiered supports. I'm also a Southern transplant to Connecticut, originally from the Atlanta area where I attended Georgia State, went to Florida for some more training and made my way up here. So please bear with me if my Southern accent comes out. So why would you be interested in this class? Well, there are a number of good reasons to consider taking this course, whether it's your personal SEL goals, concerns about student disengagement, student trauma stacking, or COVID. So first starting with personal SEL goals, you might be targeting that this year due to the current dynamics of what we're facing. And so if that's a goal of yours, you will have growth that you can see. So if you're participating in this course, we will produce graphs and data that chart your growth and your students' growth in ways that you can report for your goals. If your concern is about student disengagement, then you are not alone. We have seen that a few weeks into this pandemic, upwards of 50 to 70% of our students are not completing their work or inconsistently communicating, et cetera. And so given that situation, we want to use the best research that we have available to us to use strategies that are proven to engage. And so that will be at the core of this class. And thirdly, student trauma stacking. For those of you who are working with students with difficult behaviors or mental health concerns, which is actually all of us, because 72% of children will experience abuse, neglect, exposure to community violence, etc., during the first few 18 years of their life. And so that's a lot of students already before COVID. And then what we see is 20% of students have diagnosable mental health concerns before COVID. And now, as you can imagine, 20% more students are experiencing symptoms of depression and anxiety 1 month into lockdown. And so we lovingly call this the 2020 effect on our students. And so it's appropriate for this to be on your radar that this is compounding the idea of what we call hypervigilance among our students, that things that used to be triggers are not be triggers are now triggering students, and we're on a heightened sense of anxiety that causes us to escalate with our response to those emotions and those triggers, and then we are difficult to calm down, not only as students but us as educators as well. There's an increased awareness of burnout and how these involuntary responses that we have are neurological, and they have a beginning, middle, and end. And so they require us to be able to promote resilience for our students and ourselves, to be able to find that end, to be able to de-escalate one another, and to produce more calm environments. And then, of course, the umbrella that covers all of this is COVID, which, as no surprise to you, has increased unpredictability and disconnection at the core. And you can see all of the ways that we have experienced this over the last several months. And so we need ways to recover and overcome. And that is at the heart of this course as well. So, what do we do? What does this entail? What does this course look like for you? First, we're going to be responding to the situation of COVID with the two key factors for resilience from the National Scientific Council on the Child. The first is focusing on one stable relationship with a committed and supportive adult. And the second is a sense of predictability in and contribution to your environment. These two pillars we would consider predictability and connection. You can see a number of strategies that we have at our disposal built on research to promote more engagement for our students to be resilient in this pandemic. And so each month, you'll have one of two options. So you can choose your own path, choose your own adventure throughout this course, and spend only 20 minutes per week on this to really carve out which habits you would like to build so that you develop more connection. Maybe that's where you want to spend your time and really focus on building connection with your students, or predictability for your students. So it's up to you what adventure you choose. So each month, we'll take it month by month throughout the course of the year, introducing you to habits, which I'll explain in a minute, and focusing on which habits you would like to carve out and have more part of your everyday instruction, whether that's giving wise feedback, helping students find their voice, and then taking a moment in February to renew and refresh and maybe dig deeper into some of these practices. And then in March and April, establishing common ground, leveraging time. These are just examples of strategies that you might be spending some time in before we wrap up the year with another dive deeper to review, renew our commitment to those habits so that we at the end of the year have 4 habits that were chosen by you and that are sticking into your daily instructional routines. And so in a given month, what we'll spend time doing is watching some videos in week one and journaling how you're noticing these strategies in use already, because you're already doing a lot of these strategies that we'll talk about. And so we're going to spend some time noticing how we're already using them and thinking about new ways to use them. And then after you've completed that journal, you might meet up with a colleague or two to unpack that and brainstorm together how you could use that habit in new ways in your instruction. And then you'll upload that into our Google Classroom where we can monitor your commitment to how you can find new ways to use the strategy and discuss together how to overcome barriers that you might be facing in that. So it's a quick recap. You watch some videos. There's going to be tailored videos to each developmental range. And so we're going to have a strand of elementary school examples and a strand of secondary examples so that we can be as relevant as possible to your needs, and also considering the remote and hybrid dynamics that we're going to be looking at, because at the end of the day, a lot of the strategies that we'll talk about can still maintain into this unique situation that we're in. And then we'll take a journal of how we're seeing those habits and strategies in place before meeting with some colleagues, potentially depending on what your goals are and what resources are allocated to this from your administration and your PLCs or some other team. But you can do it alone or you can do it with a team. There's a lot of research suggesting the strength of having accountability partners if that's something that can be protected at your school. And then you'll upload your journal after you've completed it into our Google Classroom, where then we can keep track of how you're progressing and overcoming those barriers to using those strategies in new ways. And I'll be available to you throughout for office hours to discuss and brainstorm and strategize new ways that you can apply those strategies. So this is a big picture overview of how we build more predictability and connection each month through this opportunity to learn. But I'm sure you're asking, what is this content? What are you talking about in terms of how we go about this process? What is the curriculum? What is the scope and sequence of this course? We're going to start actually with staff wellness and self-care, because at the end of the day, as we mentioned, COVID has increased our burnout. And so we have to be able to breathe. We have to be able to put our masks on first. And because a lot of students are looking to us as the attendants or the pilots of the plane to see how well we're remaining calm before we can help them. And we know that this is a significant need right now, as 70% of us have decreased morale, 20% of us are more likely to leave our position, and we're about 54% more concerns about burnout than before COVID. So this is a really big and important piece to taking care of ourselves and our wellness. But of course, we don't do this. And that's why we need to talk about it, because there are some barriers for us. As helpers, we say things like, well, if I'm not giving every ounce of energy to my kids, I'm not doing my job. Or I take care of others. I don't need to have any help for myself. Or everyone else is coping, so I should be able to handle this on my own. Or if I take time for myself or ask for help, others will think I can't handle my job. All of these, I'm sure a lot of us have said on a routine basis, if not weekly or daily, as a barrier to taking care of ourselves and maintaining our sanity. So we're going to find some ways to cultivate better wellness for ourselves through little swaps and little techniques that can be embedded throughout our day. Because it would be nice to go outside and garden, but winter's coming and it's going to be rough. So we need to be taking care of ourselves. And what better place to think about taking care of ourselves has been my experience at our clinical day treatment programs, where we're dealing with intense behaviors on a routine basis, on a daily basis. And so, of course, there are a lot of moments where we do notice all of the students are on task, using the skills that we've been teaching them, and we're impressed. We stand in awe of like, wow, they're on it. So what we've been working on for the last few years is taking opportunities to see this as an opportunity to take care of myself and those students in the moment. So what we've been working on is taking a big breath in through the nose and then out through the mouth by taking care of ourselves first and then telling the students that they're using the strategies that we've taught them, that we're proud of them. By giving them that positive feedback, we're building connection with them. We're helping boost their engagement because they see that they know that we see them in that engaged state and not just out to see them disengaged. And so we'll be talking about how we can take care of ourselves and our students by noticing and cultivating habits. So that's kind of what we're talking about here with those little tiny swaps where we're talking about coaching you on tiny steps forward so that there's moments of connection and predictability, because we have to see these moments throughout the day and notice when they're available to us. And I know this next example, bear with me, might be a little kitschy to you, but I think it's a great example of how I've had some success with some of this habit coaching approach where we notice these moments that are always before us. It's fascinating for me as a para and tutor. I didn't realize how often when I was engaging with a student, interacting with them, and I was giving them a direction, that I was stating it as a question. And one of my trainers approached me about this and pointed out to me that a lot of times when we ask questions, particularly the students who have been through what we're all going through and we're all on edge, we're all anxious, sometimes a question, it sounds like something we can poke a hole in. So I might say, would you please give me your pencil? Or would you like to turn to page 278? Like those are not clear statements of directions. And so I was asking as questions to the students, and sometimes they were saying no, either directly to my face or in the way that they were responding. And so when we made a little swap, seeing that as a tiny moment to be more predictable and precise in the way I'm giving students directions, I started trading that for please. And I've worked with some teams now on this, and it's fascinating how oftentimes we caught ourselves like, oh, that was about to be a question of like, where should you be, rather than telling them you should be over here, or you should be with that group or with this team, etc. And so that swap up, that tiny moment, is an opportunity to be more predictable. And then I've worked with some teams you wouldn't believe the most so many opportunities that we miss then to say thank you. Something as simple as thank you, which I know it sounds so simple and maybe even kitschy to you, but these little opportunities, every time we said please, I've worked with a few teams on this, that seeing that please as an opportunity to then say thank you on the other side when the student does follow through with that direction of just saying that positive, taking that moment of positive connection to say thank you for following my directions, thank you for getting started, thank you for being a good team player. So all of those opportunities that we have before us are just tiny moments that we can catch. And so we'll go beyond the please and thank yous for this class, no doubt. But I hope this illustrates for you just some stories of how powerful it is and how powerful it can be to just have our minds aware and noticing what our habits are in instruction and engagement with our students. Because at the end of the day, my goal here is not to revolutionize the way you do your work and the way you deliver instruction, because really that wellness and noticing those habits is what's going to hold it all together. If we can do that, then we will boost our own strength, because you're already strong. We just need to be able to figure out ways to hang in there this year, and to remember that at the end of the day, this isn't rocket science. Good instruction is good instruction. And so a lot of the things that you're already doing will be fine. You did not forget how to teach. You just need access to your learners. So stop comparing yourself. We're not going to compare ourselves to the perfect classroom that's fully engaged with all the technology working perfectly. But we are going to strive for progress and not perfection. So how do we recover and overcome from this unpredictability and disconnection? As I alluded to, once we have that foundation of self-care and habits established, we're going to move into ways to build connection and predictability. So for example, more predictability through helping students find their voice, and more connection through giving them choice and ownership over their work. We already do this in many ways, such as providing students opportunities to choose their media, the order in which they do their work, maybe a menu of different prompts they can answer. We even use choice to de-escalate students in difficult situations. And so there's lots of ways that we can diversify the way we give choice and ownership, and then maybe even use new ways and new novel ways of giving that to them. So I'll give you a little example here of what this could look like.
One of my favorite strategies for getting students to respond in a different way is to play the stand-up game.
All right, we're gonna play the stand-up game. Will everybody stand up? This is a stand-up game.
You know, I've taught for 17 years, and for most of those 17 years, I've taught first or second hour. And I've got a lot of 17 and 18-year-olds who come tired in the morning. And one of the first things I learned long ago is that there's no good in saying, wake up.
Everybody stand up.
Let's just stand up.
All right, you get to sit down if you choose to share your response. You get to sit down if you choose to share your response. Who's up for it? Okay, here we go.
We just stand up and you get to sit down when you contribute.
The Congo River symbolizes dehumanization because the people on the river are acting inhumane by treating other people by bringing clothes to them.
Absolutely. Got it. Nice, nice. Anybody else?
What I
So this is a great example of a novel way of giving students choice and ownership over their work and how they participate. Another few examples I want to highlight of helping you be predictable and giving students voice. Of course, in our Zoom calls, we don't want to see this level of disengagement where the voice is not on at all. So there's little ways we can use things as low tech as response cards that can either get a quick multiple choice question out to the students or even start a conversation in a low-tech way during our calls. But there's also ways like insert learning, where we can help students engage and interact with websites that we send them to, or Edpuzzle that makes our video lessons actually interactive as well. So there's lots of high-tech and low-tech ways that we can help students find their voice. And this is a quick example of one way that can go across that divide, whether we're in person or in remote learning. This is a great example of ways that a teacher has used that technique before.
We call them silent signals, and students use them school-wide. So if you walk into any classroom at Think College now, you'll see students showing their agreement by going like this, their disagreement by going like this. If they're unsure, they show that they need clarification through this motion. This signifies volume. And this is what students do when another student is struggling with a question, to sort of encourage them to keep on going.
The first thing that I did was see any clue words.
How do you feel about that class? I'm seeing a lot of agreement. They're great data points for us as teachers, and also they really encourage our students to be metacognitive about their learning. Showing their agreement, disagreement, need clarification, volume, keep on going, complete sentence.
So you can see that's a great example of there's a diversity of ways students can engage, and we can do that whether on Zoom or Google Classroom or video call or in person. And these are great ideas for helping to increase students' voice, and I hope and look forward to doing that with you. So as a recap, we will focus on staff wellness and self-care before focusing on cultivating our own habits and taking those tiny steps forward, putting on our masks first, and then diving into your own adventure about which strategies and what hacks and steps forward you would like to take, so that you can, at the end of the course of the year, through this monthly routine of looking at videos, noticing your habits, brainstorming with colleagues, and sharing your progress, that you'll have 4 habits that stick with you, not only for this year, but for years to come. And so I would look forward to hearing back from you about what you think about this opportunity and what we can do to maximize our ability to support each other and hang in there together in the middle of this pandemic, so we can support the whole child and the whole educator as we move forward. So thank you for your time, and I look forward to hearing back from you.